Alright, hello everyone. So this is a sketchbook tour of my Moleskine sketchbook. This is a very old one and I probably will skip through parts of it that are a bit more personal because to me this then turned into my plein sketchbook, and I think that's more what I would like to show you today, how that's evolved over time. I'm pretty sure it's a watercolor sketchbook. Not sure why that first page isn't done. Probably could do something like an index maybe. I love Marley's indexes, so I'll probably link that in the video. The first ones that I did were in 2010, so this is now 13 years old. These are little drawings based on lyrics from a song, Birds of Tokyo. Just the lyrics made me visualize these drawings, or had certain meaning to me. And again, these are more personal drawings, and then this is me trying to learn about color theory for the very first time. I think it was based on a video from Tio. So I started just doing the colors from my palette and then looking at the mixing colors. So I don't think I did a great job there looking back now, but this was the first try, and I think I was learning more the theory than actually the paint itself. And you can see already this is now a year later, so I wasn't using it heaps. I think I learned a little bit more about warm and cool colors here. Some more personal stuff, and DeviantArt challenges. Yes, back in the day of DeviantArt. I quite like the simplicity of that water line. This is supposed to be a cave. I think I might have used some pencil as well on top. So more dragon DeviantArt challenges based on, I think this was a dragon fruit and this might have been a manta ray. Yeah, just having fun. And then we went on a trip to Italy, well, to Europe, Italy and then Norway. And this was really the first time I decided to do some plein air painting. I think, well, this one I'm pretty sure I stayed home when everyone else went out for a walk, and I just tried to paint the view from the window. And same with this one. This was me attempting to show how misty and cloudy it was before eventually that lifted as the day warmed up. And so quite liked the effect of it, but still wasn't confident with my watercolor skills, and trying to use pen, which I think worked all right here. Back to the DeviantArt drawing challenges, and then creating a Christmas card design. I think I used pencils here as well as just paint, watercolor pan paint. This was based on an exercise to do a landscape in a single color and try and show the distance. So it's supposed to be, I think, water with mountains. I don't think that was actually a view. And this was also not a view, but I really like it. I turned it into a bookmark, in fact. And it's from Tuscany, which is where we stayed in Italy. But I don't think this is actually a house that we were at. So it was based from a photo. And then going back to pen and wash. And this was like a very quick sketch for a concept for an idea. So you've got kangaroo and emus, and I think in the finished product there's a kookaburra as well. More, well, this one's another DeviantArt challenge, draw me a Pokemon. And this one was inspired by Kellogg's Loops, I'm pretty sure. And trying out white gel pen. Not sure what the feather was. I think that was trying to warm back up into watercolour paint. During this time I was working a lot, had moved to Sydney, and I can't remember where I did that one, but this one was at Big White, and I think there was a photo or a painting of this in the chalet that we were staying in. I don't think this was actually the view, but it was pretty much the view typical for there anyway. And this is when I was starting to try and do a little bit more art in my spare time and get back into it and learn watercolour. Back in 2018, January 2018. Here is On Marwin's Skillshare class exercise. That was good fun. Did learn a fair bit to learn how to use pen and wash. And then going back to learning more colour theory and learning about my paints, which still struggling with, but you can see it by, yay, purple. I'm learning something and getting more what I would expect compared to the very first tries at the beginning. How to train your Charmander, an idea for me to, this is Pokemon obviously, but also a reference to how to train your dragon. And then this was at a wedding in Margaret River, south of Perth. We were staying in a share house, and that was the tree that was in the backyard, but I never got around to painting it. And this was based off a photo, my brother's dog, but again, didn't get around to painting it. And this is, I remember here we're now in New South Wales, which is where I was living at the time, and I walked to the beach. I'd just been diagnosed with anxiety and had to take some time off. And I knew I wanted to go outside, go for a walk, spend some time thinking, but do some exercise. So walked to Coogee Beach and took my painting gear, and it was really nice day and I had a lot of fun. It was quite choppy water. This is supposed to represent like the wave, which I struggled with, but at the same time the memory is there, and that was a little boat that passed. So I think the issue here is that I didn't have a fine detail brush, and I just don't know how to show the white wave at that point. And yeah, trying to show the choppiness of the water was a little bit hard. So I've noticed in a lot of these they're quite pale, except the very early ones where it was very vibrant. So I think these ones I've now been using a water brush, and I know that that really dilutes the pigment, doesn't make it as strong and vibrant. So I think this is not long after, a week later. Reserve just nearby where I was living at the time. I really like the shadows of the trees, and just trying to show, I guess, what that park looked like to me. Otherwise it was just grass. And then at Christmas time, came back to Western Australia to Manjimup. This was Boxing Day. Had a really amazing sunset that's hard to capture here, but with like pink and purple clouds. This is a paddock with some cattle in them, and then the trees in the distance. And I quite like this. The red, this is, I guess, grass that has a red glow of it at sunset. And then this was the following year, a dam in the same place. And I think I was a bit frustrated when I was painting this for other reasons, not because of the painting, but I came here to relax, and it did help me relax. But Not sure what was going on here. It's like there's some sort of waxy, something happened with the paper. It wasn't behaving properly. And I think I got a bit bored with the trees. But I know where I was. I think I saw a snake here too, actually, that day by the water. And this was the same time, yeah, these two gum trees had really vibrant orange bark, and then other bits that were older. So underneath you could see the vibrant orange. And then back to Sydney, to New South Wales. This was a day trip, and during COVID now. So this was in August, I think one of the first times that we were able to travel again and really needed to get out in nature. We didn't go camping at this point. We went, I think that might come up soon, but this was a really lovely walk by a waterfall, Kingfisher Pool, and yeah, struggled to capture flowing water, but otherwise I was quite happy. Maybe needed a little bit of foliage here in the far bank, but just to show like the water rushing down and then these wet rocks that we were sitting nearby, and quite happy with that. Again, it's almost intuitive. I didn't really know what I was doing. I was just trying to capture what I could see in front of me any way I could. And yeah, this was when we went camping. That's the one I was thinking of. With a pen and wash, these cathedral reserve fern in the campground. Quite happy with how that one turned out. Even if it is a little bit sketchy up here, to me it sort of was what I was trying to do with the pen and the wash. And before that was this beach at Coogee, and I think I was trying to do some urban sketching. I'd been reading about urban sketching, and so I was trying to draw straight with a pen and draw the horizon line and do an outline, and this line is supposed to be the horizon, and that was my starting line. But other than that, I'm pretty happy with the water, maybe a little bit too dilute with the trees here, and I might have gone a bit overboard with the pen, but it captured the place for me there. So yeah, this turned really into a plein air sketchbook. It's nice and small. The paper was good enough quality, and that was what it became for me to capture memories. As you can see, we went out a lot trying to capture trying to really enjoy the outdoors again. And it was just starting to warm up and become summertime. We went on this nice long walk at Hermit Point, and I think with this one was a little bit hard because it was hot and the colours, I was probably blinded by the intensity of the light and the white paper. I had to go with boats and foliage, and even tried to include a building. Sketchy, but fun, and I do recall where that was on the walk, and there were people here as well. But yeah. And this was me attempting to do a bit of like a perpetual nature journal. So we were on a trip with friends down to Kiama, and in the house there was this dead yellow moth, and I think we threw it out, and then I decided later on I wanted to actually try and capture that just based on my memory, because it was such an interesting moth. So yeah, and I think, I even tried to look it up. Then my partner and I, we just went for a really, in January 2021, we were about to drive back to WA from New South Wales. But before that, we wanted to so my partner had really wanted to go down to the southernmost part of New South Wales. So that's where Wallagoot Beach is, and near Boonda. He went for a walk on Kangaroo Track, and then I drove back to meet him at the other end. We were camping here-ish somewhere, I think. And so the last bit's walking on the beach, but you've got this creek and the lake on the other side. I quite like this. I mean, the trees, you can see that they're painted on the top and needed to be a bit darker, but it shows the view, and captures that hot day for me, what you can see, and I like that I've labelled them. A little bit more of the nature journaling coming through now, rather than just a plein air painting. This was with friends in the Hunter Valley Gardens, and I think this was filmed by my friend. I struggled here. I was trying to do wet in wet for the reflections and keep it soft. I think it was a hot, humid day, and had the pen, which doesn't always work well for me. Not sure what's happening with that duck. But yeah, it sort of, I think I was trying to do too many different styles at once. Light and pen and wash, and then soft and blurry, but maybe the paper wasn't quite doing what I wanted either. I remember being a little bit frustrated with this, but we were painting this in the cafe while we ate some food. And that was, I think, the view outside. And now this is on our trip across Australia. We took 3 months to drive from Sydney to Perth. And this is one of the first places that we were in New South Wales. So this was in Wolmai National Park at Gangutty campsite. And there were these amazing rock formations, these pagodas. And this is our tent. And so again, my partner went off for a hike, and I decided to just try and paint our location. I feel like this was a big painting. It probably could have worked with being a bit smaller. I might have overworked it a bit less, but so more while we were making our way across Australia, we were living in our car, which is just a normal sedan. So we had all our food, clothes, tent, all that in a really smallish car, not a four-wheel drive, which most people take camping. And this is at Dingo Tops, a bit of a rainforesty area, and I think it must have been close to full moon that night. And I couldn't really see what I was drawing or painting, but the light from the moon coming through the trees was casting these beams of light, and with the poles for the drive, for the parking area, they were also casting quite interesting shapes. So I tried to capture that while I couldn't really see what I was drawing. It was quite an interesting exercise, and it has a really strong memory. Your eyes adjust quite well to the dark, so I could see enough, but yeah, still quite interesting. And of course, that light changes too, even at night. Then we made it to Canberra, and we stayed there for a week, and this was from watching the video recordings of Wild Wander. So it was the Tiny Worlds, and I've forgotten her name now. Anyway, I'll link it up in the video. One of the workshops, the activities from the Wild Wander was to draw 3 circles and find 3 objects and draw them up close in a lot of detail. And I had a lot of fun with this. I do recall watching the Wild Wander before it expired, those videos in that week. It was sort of like a recuperation week from all the travel. Nice to just stay in one place, catch up with a few friends. And I think I was also recovering from a mishap where I'd cut my chin. I fainted and I fell and cut my chin. So I was letting that heal. I had to get the stitches out while I was there. And now we're in Victoria. So this is Lake Elizabeth, which is a beautiful place. This was a pastel sunset. These white tree stumps coming out of the lake, which was only created relatively recently. I think there was a flood, and then some trees, maybe there was a bit of an erosion, and it like formed a natural dam, and then it rained again, and since then it's filled up and become this lake. And platypus live there now. We would walk out to the lake from the campsite, which was a few hundred meters away, quite muddy, and there were glowworms on the track as well, which was a really magical place to visit. So this is supposed to be the full moon you can just see rising, and the light reflecting on completely still water. It's just amazing. And then you can hear like little splashes and you're going, oh, is that a platypus? We kind of saw one. It was very dark. Pretty sure it was one. But yeah, almost impossible to film. And there were people out on the lake paddling, and you could see them as well, looking for platypus. And then this is when finally back in Western Australia, in Dawesville, south of Mandurah, and I think that was trying to capture the sunset. This might have been the time that I was trying to do sky scapitos, which I struggled with as well. And I joined the plein air painters in Mandurah. One of the places that we went to after, this was after the Plein Air Down Under Festival. They had a paint out here at Creary Wetlands. It was a hot day. I know I was being really annoyed by mosquitoes, and didn't have sunscreen, I think, either. So, but tried to capture the reflections because it was quite a flat water, and then had some really cool things float past, the paddle skier, the stingray, the darter. So I liked that I still included all that, even though it might not be the best painting. Again, making diagrams helps with at least adding information and helping with that memory. So that was end of 2022. And then this was at the Royal Show. This was done live from some sheep at the Adventure Trail. That must have been the next day. Wow, okay. That was the next day. It was hot, so it dried quickly. But I quite like the pencil sketches with the washes and trying to just do a few simple marks. Yeah. And this is back in Mandurah, one of the Mandurah giants. This is at Hall's Head. That's the giant there. And this was a warm-up sketch before I did a bigger painting. I had bought I had some new brushes, and they were large brushes, so I wanted to use it on large paper. But again, a very hot day, and I like how this one turned out, but not so much the big painting. And that's when I realized that I do need to practice painting at a larger scale. Started this year. So Melrose Beach, which is closer to where I live in Dawesville, or I was living at the time. Here it's a little bit pale, but I think this is just a quick sketch because I'd cycled or walked there, and it was probably getting hot. I wanted to go home, cool down. My niece's birthday party was in Bunbury at the Splash Park, and there was this cool playground that kind of looked like a pirate ship, and yeah, just practicing my plein air skills here. Ever since I did the Plein Air Down Under, I really wanted to try and keep practicing and improving. So here I was trying again with the pen and wash, but trying to use the pen to bring the elements more forward, and I'm not sure it quite worked. Maybe because the background elements need to be a bit less vibrant. Yeah, not quite sure why that's not working. I'm back at Melrose Beach, but this time tried to also write some notes down, and again showing the different foliage types. So let me read this out. Thursday, 2nd of March 2023 at Melrose Beach, 8:30 a.m. and it's going to be 31 degrees Celsius max today. No swell and only the lightest breeze. So the sea's flat, only the occasional breaking wavelet right on shore. A kangaroo was by the picnic table when I arrived. Martins fly overhead here. Two galahs exclaimed loudly from an electricity pole when I rode past, and a grey fantail just checked in on me, cockatoos in the distance. Thunderstorm later? Time for a swim now. Wind picked up. Makes me want to go to the beach again now. It's warming up, so very soon. I can probably go now. Maybe I'll go this afternoon. And so this is now in March, like on my way to the beach, just on the edge of the dwellings, residential area. There's a bush, and there was a mob of kangaroos having their breakfast. So I decided to paint them. I was quite happy with how that turned out. I think having left little bits of white really makes them stand out. And yeah, just the different poses. This was also during a challenge I was doing for walking 50 kilometers during the month of March. So I was walking every day, different areas, and that was the day that I walked on my own and took my sketching gear with me. Here is another Melrose Beach, and don't like how this turned out, but I know what I was trying to do was paint the shadows on the dunes, and that's me. And yeah, that just didn't work out. And I think also the brush marks are too monotonous. And here's a haiku because Paula Peters was doing haikus every day at this time with a little drawing or painting, and I really like that. I still want to try and do that more regularly. So, a shadow ahead, silhouetted in the dunes, so many colours. And definitely there's a lot of colours here, but that's not how I remember it in my head. A sunset during Plein April. I think this might have been just a quick... I didn't get much done for Plein April this year. Other things took over priority. This was only the second. And I think this year there weren't that many mozzies, but last time I did Plein April, I got eaten alive by mozzies. And then on the 5th, I went for a walk to the Foreshore Reserve at Dawesville. And there were these two pelicans swimming past, but also feeding as they went, and some cormorants with them. And because the light it was early morning, 8 a.m., the light was sort of reflecting low in the sky and made them very dark. And I'm quite happy, considering they are white birds. I feel like you can still recognize them as pelicans, and see what was black and what was white. And then this was the same time, but a view across the foreshore. We had like a brown raptor, possibly an osprey, flying past with the radio tower. And I quite, again, liked what I did here with leaving little bits of white to capture the interest, but still see like that's a water tower, darker foliage. I really like working on this small scale. I feel like I do a better job of sketching just what's necessary and not overworking it as much. Another one from Melrose Beach. I think I struggled with this water here. I think it was flatter than that. Needed a bigger brush. And this was in Erskine, just a bit closer to Mandurah, with the Plein Air Painters group. And you can see I taped off the edges, quite like that, and happy with the composition, which I think is what I was really aiming for. Not sure, the water didn't quite come out how I wanted, but I'm happy with the sky and trying to do little foliage marks without going into too much detail on these rocks. And now I'd moved to Perth, and this is at Lake Herdsman on the Olive Seymour Boardwalk. I'd seen some birds, so I was trying to sketch the birds, but they moved before I could really get a good job of them. And then I wanted to try and do a plein air on the boardwalk, something like this, but it just didn't work out quite the same. very dark, and again, probably need a variety of brush strokes and not to use a water brush as much. This was done really quickly during a quiet moment through our coffee window, the Twitches. It's called Twitches Cafe. I think it was a quite grey day. And then an egret landed on the grass, and I must have just gotten a bit messy with the paint. I'm not quite sure I like the head on that one so much, but just capturing moments in time as I was painting this egret landed. And then this is back in Mandurah for my second plein air down under, and this was a nocturne painting, which, yeah, I knew it would be hard. And it was quite interesting with the neon lights on the bridge and all the yellow lights from buildings or people or cars. I'm not entirely sure. And that was just looking through the window of the Mandurah Performing Arts Centre. And I bought some paint, 2 tubes of Michael Harding paint, Indian yellow and phthalocyanine blue, which I really like. And you can see here me just quickly testing them out to see the green that they can make, or greens I should say. And yeah, very happy with that, and probably should try and paint with, maybe create a tiny little palette with just those 2 and a red, and see what I can do with that. And this was during the Plein Air Down Under festival as well. These were warm-up sketches, paintings done in Pinjarra, which was on the second day. So there were these galahs in the gum trees, and then this gum tree was overhanging the river near the pedestrian bridge. And I think I liked these paintings more than the final ones I did on the day, which were of different subjects. But yeah, really nice to do like a warm-up sketch, but also capture it in this plein air sketchbook. And that's it. This was actually just done on our trip. Like, I think I was trying to clean my brush here because I didn't have anything to dry it with or clean it with. And this was a flower in one of the rooms of the Airbnbs that we stayed at when we went to Byron Bay during our trip across from Sydney to Perth. There were floods happening, really bad floods, and we were stuck here. And even there, we experienced some of the flooding. And then when we drove out, we had to really navigate carefully to make sure that the roads were okay. So that was me passing by some of the time in the room while it just rained and rained and rained outside. Nothing in there. So this is a Moleskine. I don't know if I would use it again. The paper's fine. But I have got I'll show you what my next sketchbook looks like. So I've got these Etcher sketchbooks, little A5 size. This one is a cold press. I've also got a hot press one that I'm using for a perpetual nature journal right now. But the idea with this one is to use it as my next plein air sketchbook. And I've already made a start. Took it to France. So here is the equipment, the material I was using. See the glue's not the best on that page, but for the rest it's better. And I've already made a start on some plein air sketches. And I'll show you the rest when it's done. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye.